Hello, welcome to Statecraft IAS and Social Perspectives Sociology in Newspaper series. In this series, we shall discuss newspaper articles in social perspective and revise relevant sociology syllabus topics in our UPSC mains with the help of newspaper articles on daily basis. In the first page of the Hindu newspaper today, it is reported that J&K administration bans drones in Srinagar. People having unmanned aerial vehicles should deposit them at police stations. It is further said, keeping in view the security situation, apart from concerns of breach of privacy, nuisance, and trespass, it is extremely dangerous to let unmanned aerial vehicles to wander around in the skies within the territorial jurisdiction of Srinagar, said. It is said. Now, why the police are trying to ban drones in Srinagar? Because police are trying to restore social change in Talcott Parsons' perspective. Talcott Parsons says what is social change? He discusses four systems, that is cultural, social, personality, and organismic system. Now, organismic system is the storehouse of energy. That means energy to do something or energy to act or energy to influence others is there in organism. That means each individual personality. And cultural system is the storehouse of information. That means regulating laws, norms, values, all these are stored in the culture, and that regulates the performance or actions of individuals. Now, when this energy is flown from organismic system to cultural system, that means when energy to act or energy to do some action or energy to influence others flows from organism to culture, that means if it becomes part of a culture, and if it becomes cultural aspect, then that is called social change, says Talcott Parsons. Now, here energy is among the individuals, that means among the terrorists, to influence other persons or bomb the civilians, etc. Now, police always react to such events because they do not want such events to be a norm of the day. They do not want that energy to be flown into the cultural system. That means they do not want our culture as violent and heavily tensed. That's why police always try to restore that social change through social control. Now, Talcott Parsons also says social control is through enforcement of law and police action, etc. Here we have seen NSG officers going into the site for investigating the drone attack. That is part of a social control tactic by the state, as discussed by Talcott Parsons. Now, moving on to the next article. In the next article, it is said IB sounds alert on Bangladesh nationals. IB Intelligence Bureau. It is reported that due to poverty, many Bangladeshis are entering India illegally in search of work. However, terrorist groups are luring them. Ultimately, a few of the intruders are helping the banned organizations in creating unrest in India. Now, if we analyze this article in our social perspective, in our sociology syllabus, we have a unit called Rural and Agrarian Transformation in India. Under that, problems of rural labor, bondage, and migration, we see nature of labor migration. It is in the nature that most are male individuals. That means most of the migrant laborers are males, because employers who are employing the individuals do not want females because they consider females as less productive. Now, majority of the migrant laborers are from backward SC and ST communities because they are underprivileged and they need economic empowerment or economic progress. That's why they migrate in search of better livelihoods. Now, labor migration is a complex phenomenon in duration, nature of origin and destination, and characteristics of migration process. That means it is not so simple that we cannot determine labor migration by its duration of hours or by its origin and destination places, etc. It is so complex that it cannot be easily determined. Now, family migrations in certain occupations like sugarcane, brickkiln, and construction. In these occupations, there are family migrations. That means whole families migrating to gain better livelihoods, not just male individuals. Other feature is there is variation at different levels. That means there is migration for survival, there is migration for subsistence, and there is also migration for empowerment. In this particular case, this is migration for survival and subsistence. It is said due to poverty, many Bangladeshis are entering. It is not due to empowerment. It is not for empowerment. That means they are migrating for survival and subsistence. Now, reasons for labor migration, if you see, all these are push factors. One of the reasons is accelerated development of capitalist form of agriculture. Another one is marginalization of farmers and artisans in rural areas due to resource constraint. Another one is failure of land reforms, increase in population, proportion of land laborers, etc. Other reason is inadequate expansion of non-farm employment. Due to all these factors, laborers are forced to leave their villages and migrate to urban setups for better livelihoods. As these are push factors, there are also other pull factors like uh, better livelihood opportunities in cities, better infrastructure for education, better infrastructure for health, etc. All these are pull factors by the cities. But that apart, there are push factors that we have discussed here. Due to these reasons, laborers are migrating. Now, in this very chapter, there is another topic called conditions of migrant laborers and exploitation to them. Under that, in our syllabus, there is exploitation being meted out to labor migrants by the state and the state actors, etc., or the employers, etc. Now, here is a particular case where there is exploitation by non-state actors. That means here, if we see, however, terrorist groups are luring them. That means this we can cite as an example of exploitation of migrant laborers by the terrorist groups. They are luring the migrant laborers for better returns, and they are making them antisocial elements for their gains to turn against the country. Ultimately, a few of the intruders are helping the banned organizations in creating unrest in India. This is how migrant laborers are being exploited by the terrorist organizations in India. That we can quote as an example, yeah, under exploitation to the labor migrants in this particular chapter. Moving on to the next article, it is said Taliban captures several districts in Afghanistan. They make strides throughout country. This particular article can be linked to revolution in our chapter in our sociology syllabus. Revolution is nothing but a fundamental change in political power or organizational structures in short period of time when population rises up in revolt against the authorities, or this is a radical change. Now Taliban also, they have revolted against the Afghanistan democratically elected government, and they are trying for radical change. That means they're trying to radicalize the society on lines of their religious ideology. That's why it can be called as revolution. Now, under theories of revolution, we have Karl Marx saying contradictions sourced from economic changes or changes in the forces of production result in revolution. But here in this particular case, Karl Marx is failed. That means what Karl Marx said is not the actual reason for revolution of Taliban's. For Taliban's, revival of their own religion or establishment of Islamic power is the reason for, on the lines of old Islamic age, is the reason for revolution. Now, James Davis says it is not economic changes, as Karl Marx said, it is improvement in the livelihoods of the people. With that improvement in the livelihoods, there rises aspirations. And with that aspirations, if the actual improvement is not in pace with that aspiration, then revolution comes, says James Davis. However, we have Charles Tilly saying there is an organization for revolution to happen. There is a mobilization of resources and other supplementary aspects. There must be common interest among the among the organizations and people who are in revolution against the government. That means only if Talibans are acting, it is not just Talibans who are revolting against Afghanistan. There are also other many other actors who are in play in Afghanistan. That moving along with those players requires common interest among them. That is what Charles Tilly says. And there must also be an opportunity to strike against the government or to revolt against the government. Now, Taliban also have waited for particular opportunity. Now, as the US is receding from the Afghanistan soil, they feel that they have better opportunity to strike against the government now. That's why what Talibans are doing comes under Charles Tilly's setup or Charles Tilly's theory of revolution. Now, moving on to the next article, in the editorial page, it is said that a crucial state and a key party's line of going it alone. Now, in this article, the author discusses about Bahujan Samaj Party in Uttar Pradesh and how it is wielding its political power. On the other says, if one analyzes the electoral history of the BSP, one may find that most of the time the BSP has preferred not to form an electoral alliance with political parties, but has been more inclined to form alliances with various social groups. The BSP believes that it represents a larger Dalit Bahujan social base and has what it takes to offer other social communities better political space when they join the BSP. It must be noted that it was when they began losing their capacity to form an alliance with various non-Dalit communities directly that they felt compelled to go in for alliances with political parties during the Lok Sabha general election in 2019. That means Going into the aspects of what author has discussed here, we can remind of what Andrew Patel said about caste system. In our sociology syllabus, we have a unit called chapter called caste system. Under that, Andrew Patel's perspective on caste system is caste is an objective reality. He studied Sripuram village in Tanjore district of Tamil Nadu, and he based his arguments on that on the study of that village. Now, Andhra Patel has adopted tripartitarian approach. That means there is not just caste, but social structure is sourced from three different things. That is, one is class. This class is based on or resultant of unequal distribution of land. Because of that, unequal economic power exists in society, and that is and that results in differential class. Now, other is access to power. This is political power, he says. Now, because of this differential access to political power, there exists. It also strengthens caste system, he says. This is status, which is direct resultant of caste. According to him, one should also study kinship, class, and power along with caste to understand the caste in holistic manner. He says, now Andrew Patel blames politics and media for retention of caste system still in India after independence. He says, universal adult franchise opened up new possibilities for mobilizing electoral support on the basis of caste and thus prevented the consciousness of caste from dying down. Organized politics is retaining public consciousness of caste and is maintaining and even strengthening it. Discussions in the media create an illusion that caste is an unalterable feature of Indian society. Now, all these three statements are highly relevant in what the author has said here. The author says BHP has aligned with social groups rather than political parties. That means BSP is trying to keep the social divisions or caste consciousness in the public alive. That's what Andrew Patel also said, that politics keep the public consciousness of caste alive. Now, what Amartya Sen says is there must be countervailing power among the underprivileged groups to combat the caste system or combat the exploitation of caste system. He says building of better political organization of underprivileged groups is required. Here, BSP can be quoted as an example of that better political organization, because for Dalits and Bahujans, BSP is nothing but a political organization to represent their interest at higher stage. This is nothing but an example of countervailing power, as Amartya Sen has rightly said. That political organization is required to eradicate caste consciousness in the society, feels Amartya Sen. But what Andhra Patel feels is that because of that existence of political power or political power based on that ideology, caste system is still prevalent in society, according to Andhra Patel. Moving on to the next article, in the open editorial page, there is an article reporting saying about how Chhattisgarh has stalled a historic judgment. The Salwa Judum judgment was delivered 10 years ago, but nothing has been done to implement it. Now, the author says, at its peak between 2005 and 2007, the Judum involved forcing villagers into government-controlled camps. Those who refused were punished by having their villages burned. That means social control action is taking place, according to Talcott Parsons. This is nothing but enforcement of law or police action. Hundreds of people were killed and their deaths were not even recorded as encounters. Villagers fled to neighboring states or into the forests around their villages. Sangham members, active but unarmed Maoist sympathizers, were either jailed or compelled to join the security forces as special police officials. Today, the Judum camps are virtually empty, with only the former SPOs and their families remaining in now permanent houses. Villages split between those who went to the camp and those who went to the forest are now reconciled. That means police efforts or the state efforts to curb Maoism in the Chhattisgarh area by forcing villagers to flee Maoist controlled camps has not worked out. This draws relevance for Parsons' statement. In Parsons' social system and cybernetic hierarchy, the police have tried to restore social change by curbing the energy to flow from organism to culture. Now, if the whole area is sympathizing Maoists, that means the energy which was hitherto present in individual Maoists, the energy to revolt against the government, which was hitherto present in individual Maoist, has seeped down into the culture of that area. That means every individual in that area are supporting Maoists. That means revolting culture is prevalent in that area. That means energy has flown from organism to culture. That means social change has taken place. Now the police are trying to restore that social change. How? By enforcement of law and police action. However, these social control efforts are not entirely successful, as we have seen here. The today the Judum camps are virtually empty, with only the former SPOs and their families remaining in now permanent houses. That means police efforts are largely failure in nature. That is why Parsons says fear of punishment will not always act as deterrence. Moral commitment is required, says Parsons. Those who refused were punished by having their villages burned. That means villages were threatened by punishment. Even then, villages have not committed to the police requests and police efforts because moral commitment is required by the villagers. Now, how that moral commitment comes among the villagers to stop their sympathy towards Maoist and to support police action? It becomes through socialization process. That means imbibing values, norms, morals, etc. And other thing is we have to see what people actually need. Here the article says villages are demanding schools and health centers. Instead, what they have got in abundance are CRPF camps. That means villagers need schools and health centers. They need development, but state is trying to forcefully curb their aspirations, and state is trying to establish CRPF camps for every 5 kilometers. That means state is only concentrating on social control and neglecting socialization process. Hence that socialization, that means values, norms, morals, etc., and giving what they need. They need schools and healthcare centers. If what they need is given by the state, that moral commitment comes among the individuals to stop support for Maoist and to listen to the police. Now Parsons in his functional prerequisites says there are 4 systems: agile functional prerequisites: adaptation, goal attainment, integration, and latency. Now government is only trying on goal attainment. That means determination of goals. What is goals? Curbing Maoist tendencies and motivating the members of the system to attain these goals. It has motivated the members of police officials to attain these goals, but mobilizing the members and their energies for the achievement of these goals is not so uh, effective here. To mobilize the members and their energies for the achievement of future goals, achievement of these goals, state needs to act on and listen to the requests of villages. Also, it has to set up education and healthcare centers. Because of state failing in that aspect, it has failed in goal attainment also. That means political system as a whole failed in this particular example. Now economic system says it is adaptation. That means generation and acquisition of resources from outside the system to affect its distribution in the system. Now people need food, people need money. For that, people think that education helps to gain better livelihood. As they are denied of education, they are denied of better opportunities for livelihood and better earnings in the future. That means economic system has failed here. Now in the cultural system, it is Parsons talks about integration. That means to maintain coherence, solidarity, and coordination by cultures and values. This has also largely failed because that particular village has failed to integrate itself with the other members of the society. It is always trying to sympathize Maoists and revolt against the government. That means integration of those individuals or villagers into the mainstream society has failed. Now social system, it is Parsons talks about latency. That means pattern maintenance and tension management within the system performed by the socialization process of the members. Now here socialization process itself has failed. We have seen education or healthcare centers is not being established by the state. That means socialization process has itself failed. That's why tension management also failed. That means uh, latency is not at play here. That's why tension management is unable to be controlled by the police. That's why social system has also failed. As a whole, agile functional prerequisites have failed here. The police have failed to attain their goals and and they have failed to maintain social order and establish social cohesion in the society in this particular example. Now we can quote this Salva Judum example as a relevant example in our answers also in Parsons, in substantiating Parsons statement saying fear of punishment will not always act as deterrence, moral commitment is required. We can quote this statement by Parsons in exam, and we can write example as Salva Judum case. In that case, fear of punishment has not deterred those villagers to stop supporting Maoists. Moral commitment is required. That means heeding to their request is required to gain that moral commitment by them. Now moving on to the next article. Here it is said, the heavy footprint of a light rail. A part of the land that has been earmarked for acquisition for the light rail in Kerala are wetlands. Now this article talks about Kerala government going for light rail project. That means infrastructure development project to connect to distinct areas in Kerala. One is Kasargod and one is Thiruvananthapuram. That means state is trying to focus on transportation and get economic gains from by that, because if transportation is strengthened, ease of doing business happens and better returns will come for state. That means state is giving priority for economic gains rather than ecological concerns. That is what it is discussed in this article as a whole. This article tries to highlight the ecological impact of that light rail project in Kerala. Without going into the article, if we look what social perspective is there here, it is Karl Marx economic determinism. Karl Marx says economic base structure determines socio-political superstructure. Now here also economic base structure, that means need for better economic gains. That means better infrastructure facilities, better transport facilities between two ends of a state are nothing but part of production process. Economic base structure is nothing but that which is included in the production process directly. Now transportation of goods from one place to other place, improvement of infrastructure facilities for industries to operate, better access to individuals to the market, all these are part of production process. That means they are all part of economic base structure. Now we have seen how this economic base structure is determining political decisions. Now Kerala government is favoring this light rail project, neglecting ecological impacts. That means ecology, environment, all these are come under socio-political superstructure. That means whatever which do not have direct participation in the production process can be placed in socio-political superstructure. Hence, in this example, we have seen how economic base structure is determining superstructure. That means environment in this particular case. Moving on to the next article. Here it is said, lynching is against Hindutva, says RSS chief. Before going into the contents of this article, we try to analyze, going on by the word lynching, we try to analyze our chapter, that is challenges of social transformation. In paper 2, we have a chapter called communalism. Now W.C. Smith defines communalism as, communalism is that ideology which has emphasized as the social, political and economic unit the group of adherents of each religion and has emphasized the distinction, even antagonism between such groups. K.N. Panikkar, on the other hand, defines communalism as, communalism is a state of consciousness which primarily draws upon certain assumptions of distinct cultural identity for members professing the same religion. That means members professing Hinduism, they have this consciousness of distinct political identity or cultural identity. For members professing Muslims, they have this Islam, they have this consciousness of distinct cultural identity. Now, Gyanendra Pandey, on the other hand, defines communalism as, communalism is a form of colonialist knowledge, which in its Indian usage means a condition of suspicion, fear, and hostility between members of different religious communities. This fear is there, this fear of suspicion is there, this fear of hostility exists between the minds of the individuals or different religious communities, as Gyanendra Pandey says. Now, discussing communal violence, communal ideology and politics are the disease, and communal violence is only its external symptom, says Bipin Chandra. That means communal violence in the society is not a threat in itself, but communal ideology and politics are the actual threats. Because of that communal ideology and politics only, this communal violence is taking birth. He says, elections in independent India became, sorry for the interruption. That means Bipin Chandra says communal ideology and politics are the actual disease, and communal violence is only stemming from those communal ideologies and politics. He further says elections in independent India became ends in themselves, and narrow self and political interests rather than larger national interests became more important. Now Rajni Kothari says such ethnic orientation of the members game has two prominent features. One is rise of new political organizations that are sometimes blatantly and sometimes not so blatantly communal. This happens on the local levels or starts at that level and then moves up. Example is Shiv Sena, as quoted by Rajni Kothari. The other prominent feature is that the capture of political organizations by cultural and sectarian organizations. What starts as non-political organization takes on political roles. Example is RSS and Jamaat-e-Islami, says Rajni Kotari. Now, if we look into the aspects of this article now, here it is said, there can never be any dominance of either Hindus or Muslims. There can only be the dominance of Indians, says the RSS chief. If a Hindu says that no Muslim should live here in India, then that person is not a Hindu. Cow is a holy animal, but the people who are lynching are going against Hindutva. Law should take its own course against them without any partiality. Don't get trapped in the cycle of fear that Islam is in danger in India, says RSS chief. That means he's trying to allay the fears of Muslims. Now, here we have seen Gyanendra Pandey says, communalism is a condition of suspicion, fear, and hostility between members of different religious communities. That's why RSS chief is trying to curb communalism by allaying those fears or allaying those fears of suspicion or hostility among the Muslims. He's saying, don't get trapped in the cycle of fear that Islam is in danger in India. There are some things that politics cannot do. It cannot unite people. Politics cannot become a tool for uniting people, but can become a weapon to distort unity. This is exactly what it is said. Communal ideology and politics are the disease. Communal violence only its external symptoms, says Bipin Chandra. That means he quotes politics as the reason for communal violence in India. That is what RSS chief also said here. Politics can become a weapon to distort unity. Now, if we analyze measures to combat an ethnic and communal violence, we have one decommunalization of state. That means we have to convince state that there is no good with communal politics, and we have to decommunalize the state as a whole, or political elite. We have to decommunalize bureaucracy. That means we have to punish those bureaucrats who believe that secularism is not good for India. And we have also to decommunalize civil society. Why? It is often the pressure from the pressure of this civil society groups, the state acts in particular manner which fuels communalism in India. Hence, if we decommunalize civil society, we can remove the influence of those communal civil societies on the political class. Next one is education, which is value oriented, is required to combat communal violence. Next one is media. We have to ban communal press, and we have to take legal action against communal writers. If we spread the messages of secularism and the benefits of secularism and social harmony through media, we can combat communal violence effectively. And then there are peace committees of individuals from different religious communities have to be set up to promote social harmony and peace in the society. Now we have to target extremism by the government in power. Government in power must feel that this extremism and extreme ideologies as its immediate targets to curb communal violence. Next one is social cohesion by weeding out suspicions between communities rigorously. This is what RSS chief has done here. He's weeding out suspicion by giving such statements. And the other one is institutional measures that are required. That means secular-minded officials in riot-prone areas must be posted. Special courts must be set up to trial cases of communal violence. Next, immediate relief and financial assistance must be given to the victims of communal violence. All these measures are required to combat ethnic and communal violence effectively. Thus, this article becomes relevant in our sociology syllabus, that is communalism. Moving on to the next article, here it is said, Assam plans subgroups to stabilize population. The BJP-led government in Assam, eyeing a two-child policy in the long run, has decided to constitute 8 subgroups towards stabilizing the state's population. This particular statements or this particular example is highly relevant in our chapter called Population Dynamics in second paper. We can quote this example in answers while discussing any relevant point in exam in that particular chapter. The article further says, if we have to be among top 5 states, we have to manage our population explosion. The real threat, the population explosion in some parts of Assam, pose to the development of the state in an economic sense. This again points us or drives us to the Karl Marx theory called economic determinism. Now he says economic base structure determines socio-political superstructure. Here also, in economic sense, Assam's CM feels that development of state is required, and for that development of state, curbing population explosion is essential. That means economic base structure is determining political decision in this particular case. That's why economic determinism is highly relevant in this particular example. He told that he would appoint some subgroups. Each group would work in specific sectors such as health, education, financial inclusion, and women empowerment, besides population stabilization. All these things or all these examples are highly relevant in our population dynamics chapter. The inputs of these subgroups will help us prepare a 5-year roadmap when we meet again after 3 months. That means he's trying to carve out a developmental plan based on population dynamics. That's why it is important for us in our sociology syllabus and in our social perspective. Now that's all we have for today. If you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe to Statecraft IAS. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day.